What if I told you that some of the wealthiest Americans, billionaires, hedge fund managers, tech founders, are quietly leaving the country? Again? It's not a theory, it's already happening. In fact, the number of ultra-high net worth individuals, those with over $30 million in assets, relocating outside the US is at its highest level in over a decade. And it's not just about taxes anymore. Yes, taxes are still a huge driver, especially with proposals in places like California for wealth taxes, unrealized capital gains taxes, and even exit taxes. But if you think this is just about keeping more money, you're missing the bigger picture. This new wave of wealthy migration is about control. Control over privacy, over safety, over freedom of movement, over long-term security for their families and their wealth. Let's break down what's really happening behind the scenes and where they're going. Since 2020, there's been a noticeable rise in what's called global residency diversification. That means the rich are securing second passports, buying real estate abroad, and setting up legal residency in countries with favorable tax, legal, and lifestyle conditions. Portugal's Golden Visa was once a top choice, offering EU residency with minimal requirements. Though it's recently changed, the trend hasn't stopped. It's just shifted to countries like Spain, Italy, Malta, and the UAE. The UAE in particular has exploded in popularity. Why? Zero income tax, political stability, world-class infrastructure. And now, thanks to aggressive marketing and favorable business conditions, it's becoming a new Monaco for billionaires. But it's not just about glamour. Take Singapore. With its strategic location, top-tier education, low corruption, and business-friendly environment, it's a magnet for hedge funds and tech executives. Or New Zealand, which saw a surge in interest from Silicon Valley elites who literally bought bunkers and estates during the pandemic, looking not just for luxury, but survival. What's important to understand is that this isn't a temporary shift. The ultra-rich are hedging against instability, against potential US policy shifts, social unrest, future pandemics, and even the risk of capital controls. And at the end of the day, when you have 100 million or more, you're not just planning for your lifetime, you're planning for the next 5 generations. That's why they're not just leaving. They're building options. In the next part, I'll show you exactly how they do it, how the rich legally move their wealth, obtain second citizenships, and protect their assets from taxes and governments. It's a system most people never even get to see. So how exactly are the ultra-rich pulling this off? How do you legally move hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars offshore, without breaking a single law? It starts with something called residency arbitrage. This is the practice of leveraging different countries' legal frameworks to minimize taxation, increase asset protection, and expand personal freedoms. And it's not new. But what's changed is the speed and sophistication of the structures being used. Wealthy families are now using a combination of trusts, international holding companies, private foundations, and citizenship-by-investment programs to create global firewalls around their assets. For example, a billionaire based in California might relocate to Texas or Florida first, 2 states with no personal income tax, as an initial move. Then they establish a non-domiciled status in the UK or gain legal residence in Monaco or Dubai. From there, they set up a trust in the Cayman Islands, open a family office in Singapore, and park assets in jurisdictions like Liechtenstein or Switzerland. This is not about hiding money. It's about jurisdictional diversification. The same way investors diversify portfolios, the rich diversify legal exposure. The average person might think this sounds extreme, but for the ultra-rich, it's a rational strategy. If you've built a $500 million fortune and a new law threatens 1-2% of that annually in new taxes, that's $510 million a year. Over a decade, that's $100 million lost. Money that could have gone to their heirs, foundations, or reinvestment. Now add to that the uncertainty. Unrealized capital gains taxes, potential estate tax increases, wealth caps, retroactive taxation. And it's not just talk. Several U.S. lawmakers have introduced bills that would tax people on their global assets regardless of where they live. Others are proposing minimum wealth taxes even without income realization. For the ultra-rich, this signals risk, not just of paying more taxes, but of losing control. That's why they act fast. Second passports are a key piece of the puzzle. Programs in countries like St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, or Dominica offer citizenship in a matter of months, often in exchange for a donation or a real estate investment. While these might sound like exotic options, they grant powerful benefits: visa-free travel, access to global banking, and protection against political overreach. Then there are residence-by-investment programs. These include Portugal's D7 visa for passive income earners, Spain's non-lucrative visa, Italy's investor visa, and the UAE's long-term golden visa. Each offers a legal pathway to live abroad while optimizing for taxes and lifestyle. But what many don't see is the infrastructure being built around these moves. Entire industries now cater to global mobility for the rich. Law firms that design cross-border estate plans, tax advisors who specialize in dual taxation treaties, consultants who scout real estate that qualifies for residency. There are even elite concierge services that coordinate everything from school enrollment to yacht registration, all offshore. And they're not just moving for tax reasons. Privacy is another major driver. In the US, wealth is highly visible. Public records can reveal property ownership, trust beneficiaries, even litigation history. But in countries with strict privacy laws like Switzerland or the UAE, much of this becomes opaque. That's important when you consider the rising number of security threats, both physical and digital. Kidnappings, extortion attempts, doxing, reputational attacks, all of these have risen alongside the visibility of ultra-wealthy individuals online. So these moves aren't always public. In fact, many relocations are done quietly through shell entities or under family office structures. By the time the public hears about a billionaire moving to Singapore or Monaco, the reality is they've already been operating from there for months, or even years. This isn't about escaping responsibility. It's about anticipating risk and engineering stability. Because for the ultra-rich, uncertainty is the biggest liability. And while most people react to crises after they hit, the ultra-rich prepare for them before they happen. So, what happens when the wealthiest citizens start walking away? It's not just a personal decision. It sends ripple effects through the entire economy. Let's start with the obvious: tax revenue. High net worth individuals contribute a disproportionate share of tax income. According to IRS data, the top 1% of earners pay about 42% of all federal income taxes. In states like California and New York, the concentration is even higher. When these individuals leave, especially in large numbers, local governments feel it fast. We've already seen the signs. New York lost hundreds of millions in projected tax revenue following the exodus during the pandemic. California, despite raising its top income tax rate, has faced a growing budget shortfall, prompting debates over wealth taxes, new surcharges, and tightening rules for exit. But here's the irony. The more these policies attempt to catch wealthy individuals, the more they accelerate their departure. And once the infrastructure is in place, second passports, foreign trusts, offshore residences, it becomes incredibly hard to reverse. Meanwhile, other countries are competing for this wealth. Dubai advertises itself as the Wall Street of the Middle East. Singapore quietly positions itself as the new global HQ for Asian capital. The Caribbean markets its citizenship programs like luxury resorts. Even Southern Europe is courting wealthy foreigners with visa incentives and tax caps. While the US debates how to tax unrealized gains, other nations are offering 10-year tax holidays and flat tax regimes. And here's where it gets more personal. You might think this has nothing to do with you if you're not in that top 1%. But when the rich leave, the consequences don't stop at the top. State budgets tighten. That leads to cuts in services, infrastructure delays, underfunded schools. To compensate, governments often shift the burden downward, raising property taxes, increasing consumption taxes, or implementing new fees that affect middle-income families. It also affects real estate. Cities like San Francisco, New York, and Los Angeles have seen luxury property markets soften as high net worth buyers look elsewhere. Meanwhile, cities like Austin, Miami, Dubai, and Lisbon have seen prices surge, creating pockets of gentrification, housing crunches, and social tension. But it's not just about homes, it's about talent and capital. Many ultra-wealthy individuals are also business owners, investors, and startup backers. When they move, so do their companies, so does their funding, so do their networks. That means fewer jobs, less venture capital, fewer new businesses being formed in traditional US hubs. And here's the most concerning part. Brain drain is real. Some of these immigrants aren't just rich, they're highly skilled. Top engineers, biotech founders, crypto innovators, AI researchers. When these minds find friendlier legal and regulatory environments abroad, they often don't come back. This isn't about patriotism or betrayal, it's about incentives. And incentives are shifting globally. What's happening now is a rebalancing of wealth power. For decades, the US has been the undisputed magnet for talent and capital. But the rise of multipolar global finance plus hyperconnectivity plus regulatory arbitrage is changing that. So what can you learn from all this? First, understand that wealth mobility isn't just a billionaire luxury, it's a mindset. You may not need a passport from Malta or a trust in the Cayman Islands, but you can learn to think globally, structure intelligently, and protect your assets proactively. Second, realize that change is coming faster than most people expect. Tax codes, digital currencies, global regulations, all are evolving. And those who stay informed, plan ahead, and stay flexible will thrive regardless of where they live. And finally, don't assume that this trend will reverse on its own. If the US wants to remain a hub for innovation, investment, and wealth creation, it has to rethink how it treats the people who create the most value. Because when the builders, funders, and innovators leave, what's left behind isn't just less money, it's less future. So if you found this video valuable, hit the like button to help more people discover it. And subscribe if you want to keep learning how money, power, and global trends are reshaping the world. Got questions or want a deep dive into offshore strategies, second passports, or tax planning? Let me know in the comments. I read everyone. Because the sooner you understand how the system works, the sooner you can use it in your favor.